Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Swanberg, and if you are watching video, sorry about that, you are watching this video, it is because you are waiting to be matched, which is often a day that feels like a month and is often full of lots of nerves and excitement. And so I am really excited to share with you what I know about waiting to be matched, how to maximize your chances, and what you need to do before you get to this stage. So if you haven't yet done it, you can backtrack and get those steps done. I'm going to leave just another moment for people to join, as I know a couple people had some technical issues there. So we'll just wait a moment. Okay, again, welcome. So glad that you're here. If you are an intended parent who has registered in our program, have joined us, and are not matched, this webinar is for you. I want to start with pieces of the process that I believe will lead you to the most quality match. And the first one is really talking about having all of your partners in place ahead of your readiness to match. And so when I talk about all of the partners, I'm talking about your clinic, the lawyer that's going to draft the agreement with your surrogate, the insurance provider, if you're outside of Canada, to put in place the newborn insurance. As well, that same company is able to put in insurance for your surrogate, life insurance for her, which is a requirement of your legal agreement. So, having those partners in place first is really important. And the reason it's important is this: if an agency that you're working with, so in this case, us, if we know what fertility clinic you are working with, we are able to source a surrogate who meets your clinic's criteria for moving forward. And each clinic that we work with has a slightly different way of doing things, a slightly different criteria. And for us as an agency, it's so important that we get it right the first time that we are going to ask you to identify a clinic that you're working with, either where your embryos are or are going to be moved in order to move forward with surrogacy. When I talk about your embryos being where they're going to be or being moved, here's what that means. If an intended parent identifies themselves as sorry, that light is driving me crazy. If an intended parent identifies themselves as working with a US clinic, we know at CFC there is a longer wait time to find a surrogate who is interested or willing to move or travel to the US for treatment. And so we may go over with you options of Canadian clinics. We may provide you a second opinion with one of these doctors free of charge. And we may introduce you to another set of intended parents who have done such and had success. And ultimately, it is up to you. I often say that the time it takes to match is not only based on the number of surrogates entering into our program, it's also based on where your clinic is, where you are in the world, your family branding, and how you want to be in this surrogacy journey or relationship. And so that is the clinic piece. When we look at the lawyer, we want you to have the lawyer in place because once you are matched, so once you select a surrogate and she selects you back and you're introduced, we kind of call that a match, although really it is more of an introduction than a match. We want to make sure that ahead of that, you've spoken to a lawyer who has introduced you likely to another lawyer who's in your jurisdiction, who is going to give you advice on what places in Canada would be best suited for you to proceed. We're going to have that conversation around documentation that you'll need to travel home post birth. And so where that surrogate lives may be important for you in terms of how long you'll be staying. The typical time in Canada post-birth is 2 to 4 weeks. And with that said, we always say, do you work remotely? Can you work remotely? Because 2 to 4 weeks on the outside, and then often 2, 3, sometimes 4 weeks ahead of time, if your baby is stubborn and decides to take a bit of time to come and you travel to Canada at week 37, baby arrives at week 41. Right there, we're at 4 weeks. And so really finding a surrogate in a community that you could see yourself for a couple of weeks to a couple of months. If you are located in Canada, you can typically travel home within 7 days. So that's something really to look at, your team, lawyer and clinic. So as you're doing that homework, I'm also going to suggest doing the homework of what I call an insurance audit. An insurance audit is to look at your workplace benefits. So you may need to contact your HR department. You may have the book from your company's insurance program. You may be self-employed and have an accountant who administers all of that for you. Whether 1, 2, or 3 are true, the homework still exists. So if you were to go to your HR or department that administers and takes care of all of those questions, the question might be, how do I contact our outside insurance company? I've got some questions. And they may say, well, we handle that in-house, or you'll call this 1-800 number. When you get to your insurer, it's really important to ask a couple of things. First question, do you offer alternative family building benefits of any kind? Whether it's adoption, whether it's for assisted reproductive technology, so for IVF or IUI, or freezing your eggs or sperm. Do we have a comprehensive drug plan that covers fertility medication? So, checking those boxes. There's money often there that we miss, that intended parents miss out on and go, oh, I could have saved, a great deal of money. And when we think about those who are working with an egg donor and a surrogate, the average amount of money that is spent on medication alone is $8,000 and sometimes up to $12,000. So if you have employer benefits or employee benefits that will cover some of that, knowing that the receipt for the medication, the receipt for the egg collection, the receipt for the IVF, all of that comes in your name because you are the paying party at the fertility clinic. So I want to give just a moment of pause there. If anyone has any questions as we go, I forgot to add, there is a comment section to my right, and it just says, please leave a comment or question. So I will leave that there for a moment if anyone has any questions about that piece. Okay, the next piece is, as you're asking those questions, whether it's through HR or whether through your insurer directly, if there aren't benefits, going back to your HR and saying, hey, is there a way that I can set up through our benefits a health spending account so that you can put pre-tax money in to then be moved across for medical treatment? That often is an option, and one I would definitely suggest asking. If you are employed for self, so if you are self-employed in really anywhere, but I have more understanding of the Canadian process. If you're self-employed and have an accountant who you're comfortable sharing that you're going through this journey with, I think that's the first thing. My suggestion then is to talk to that accountant and see if a health spending account is possible. And we have had many Canadian clients create a health spending account and put pre-tax money into this health spending account that then is utilized for the fertility treatments at the clinic, the surrogates reimbursements with the receipts from us or statements from us backfilling that money. We've also seen a number of self-employed people who have purchased a private healthcare plan in order to have access to some of these benefits. And typically it is, sort of a 3-month wait. So while you're waiting, this can be a great opportunity. We also have, in Canada, we have a great social healthcare system, and regardless of where you're located, your surrogate will be covered. But the person who won't be covered is your baby born in Canada, unless you are Canadian. So if you are from outside of Canada and accessing surrogacy in Canada, it will be imperative to purchase insurance for your baby unless you have coverage for a child born abroad. We have found that 90 to 95% of our intended parents in the US have coverage. We know that clients in the Netherlands also often have coverage. So really, really important to look into that. Insurance for your baby through Baby Shield, which is currently the only company that offers a policy for babies born in Canada. For those outside of Canada, we see intended parents with a premium at the end of the day of $20,000 to $30,000 and sometimes more. And so really getting clear on, whether you need that. And if you do, getting it in time. It needs to be purchased prior to the embryo transfer. And so getting that in place is really important. So as we're doing that and as we're moving forward with all of that, really talk to your case specialist at CFC, or if you're even sort of pre that stage, talk to your journey guide about getting in touch with ArtRisk, who administers Baby Shield insurance. If you are unsure, you live in the US, you can't really make heads or tails of your policy, that would be an opportunity to work with ArtRisk Insurance as well. For a fee, they will review your policy and they will go through with you what could be covered, what isn't covered, and how to get it covered. Does anyone have any questions about that? I want to make sure that you have ample time to ask any questions. Okay, the next and very important piece of this process is your family brand. We shifted our wording from your intended parent profile to your family brand because we really wanted you, the intended parent, to see this as your calling card, to see this as your 30-second elevator pitch, to see this as a way to show who you are. And when I ask you to show who you are, it isn't even necessarily in relationship to surrogacy. What it is an opportunity for you to show a surrogate how she could fold right into your family, the type of relationship you'd like to have with her, the type of contact. She's going to see that through pictures. She's going to see that through your video. She's going to see that through your Canva. And very, very rarely in a video would an intended parent say, "Hey, surrogate, I'd like you to be a part of my family." And surrogates often say they felt like they could be a part of their family based on their Canva lookbook, which on a journey guide call and a brand building call, you'll hear a lot about. And essentially this Canva lookbook is something that I imagine you would see on someone's coffee table. And we actually put them on coffee tables at surrogate retreats so that surrogates can give us feedback on them. They can select intended parents by utilizing them. And so imagine you walk into a beautiful home. There's a beautiful, comfortable sofa. There's a large coffee table. And on that table is your love story. The story of how you met through photos, the friends and family that you've met along the way who are there to welcome your child. That is what that book is to convey. We're going to ask you to write a biography, a letter to your future surrogate. And we do that just to sort of back up the photo book. We then are going to ask you to do 2 videos. And often the short video If people say that we can share them on social media, that's usually where we share that one. But we do like to have it in our back pocket because we do know that sometimes surrogates, are busy moms, they're on their phone, and we just want to shoot them a quick text with your video and say, hey, what do you think of these guys? And so we'll ask you for 2 videos, one for 45 seconds and one for up to 2 minutes. And as we do that, we want you to really think about how you are going to show up in this journey with the surrogate. Does anyone have any questions on the family branding and at what time and place that happens? Okay. As you are creating your family brand, you'll be checking in with your journey guide to say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Our journey guides are previous surrogates. And what's great about that is they really know what it is that surrogates are looking for, and they will give you the straight goods. For us, our job is to match you quickly. And so we are going to tell you what tweaks or changes to make in order to be seen. And so one thing we know for sure is the least interesting thing about you is that you're going through surrogacy. So we often say to intended parents, focus on everything else. Focus on the family that you have. Focus on the family that you're building. Focus on how you imagine your relationship with your surrogate. In your long video, talk about your embryos. Talk about the nature of your infertility. If you can, at the end of that sentence around your infertility, if you can end it with, and we are so hopeful and we are so excited, because nobody wants to be part of a sad story. And so really being able to sort of shift that thinking, and we will absolutely coach you through that. Sorry, I have the worst tickle in my throat. As you are creating your family brand and getting that over to us, we then start putting that story together and we start bringing that to life. And once we have everything we need, so the Canva, the biography, letter to your surrogate, and videos, we then will introduce you to a case specialist. Your case specialist will take it from there. And I want to sort of go over the nonsensical, and not that it's nonsense, but it makes no sense, matching process. And while I try to make it make sense, it just doesn't. And here's why. When you are waiting to be matched, you will be placed on a list. You will receive an email along with other intended parents with Jenny's profile. We are going to ask you, as you look at Jenny's profile, to look at a few highlighted pieces. One being her location. Does that work for you in relation to where you live? Her views around termination. Would she terminate or not based on, her views matching your views? We're going to ask you to look at what her work cessation or wage replacement and childcare would be if she's on bed rest, as 10% of surrogates unfortunately end up on bed rest in order to keep your baby safe and based on a medical opinion from a doctor. From there, we are going to ask you to look at the type of contacts you would like during the journey and after. Although that can change, what we do know for sure is that matching with intention is so important. So if the surrogate's intention is that she, has a close relationship with you and that she knows you and that you know each other after your child is born, that likely won't shift. We see that as a bit of a immovable value, unless of course there's a breakdown in the relationship, which we truly hope there isn't. Termination values, we don't see those shift. We really see someone writes it down, that's how they feel. And the great thing about an agency is you're going to know all of that ahead of time. You're not going to have to ask her what her wages are if she's off work. You're not going to have to ask her what her termination views are, because you're simply not going to select a surrogate who doesn't share those views. So you select Jenny, your portfolio is sent to Jenny's intake team or journey guide. And currently that's Megan and Heather. And whoever did the surrogate's intake will meet with the surrogate to go over your biography. So watch the video, talk about what she liked about, and if she saw herself working with you. Talk about the fertility clinic you're working with. Talk about its location. Is she willing to travel there? We want to make sure that's also a fit. And then the rest is very subjective. We go over, yes, they have embryos. No, they don't. Here are their termination values. Here's where they live in Canada or the world. And the journey guides typically will go over 3 to 5 profiles at the same time. And here's where it gets nonsensical. We ask you to respond quickly. So you respond right away. And you're file number 1 that she sees. Sounds great. Hey, yeah, you're the first one she sees. It could be great because she could say, they are it. I don't want to continue looking. Or she may say, or they may say, I kind of want to keep looking. I'm not really sure. So they keep looking and they land on number 6 or number 8 or number 11. And so being first maybe wasn't best. But there is no, we've looked at the data every which way we can, and there's just no way to know. So if you hear back from your case specialist, you've been selected, or the surrogate had questions. If you don't, no response is a response, and it's a response of this surrogate either hasn't picked yet or has chosen someone else. And so we really just ask for your patience and understanding as you go through that. Yes, yes, yes. Door close, door close, door close. For us, it's really important to have the right match, which is why we put such a heavy emphasis on your brand building to ensure that your brand aligns with the surrogate's brand. I'm going to give another pause here just in case anyone has any further questions. Okay, I have a question from Instagram, and it is someone that's watching. And just so everyone knows, on the right-hand side comments, you can put your questions there. I just don't want to miss anyone by missing their comments. So their question was, how many intended parents go to each surrogate? And it really depends. We have, I think it's between 80 and 90% of our intended parents right now are same-sex male couples. And so if you're a same-sex male couple and the surrogate says she's open to same-sex male couples, your portfolio could be number 1 of 50 or number 26 of 50. Or she says she only wants to work with someone in Canada or in Ontario. And so the number is always shifting based on who the surrogate is looking for. And please keep in mind that there are many intended parents, 20% of those that we match, who are starting again. And they're starting again based on unsuccessful transfers that occurred. They're starting again based on a match break due to contract breakdown, or they've met and it just wasn't a fit. The surrogate decides she doesn't want to move forward with surrogacy. There are many reasons, but 20% of our clients are there. And so those profiles will also go over. So you may be, one of 25 new clients and one of 25, restarting clients. We don't limit the number of people we'll put forward, but like I said, we do put 3 to 5 people forward at a time, and we just send them. So is she going to click the last one of the last portfolio in the email? Is she going to, go to the first one, the second one? We don't know. And so really, really just knowing, we don't know. And there is no science, no psychology. It is absolutely nonsensical. And in fact, even when we talk to surrogates about why they picked who they picked, it is often something as simple as they have the same dog as me. her name is the same name as my grandmother who passed away last month. It must be a sign. And so with that being said, it's so important to understand that while it may feel like the most personal, I don't want to say attack, but the most personal thing when a surrogate says no to you, really is not. It's not like she's not picking you. She's just picking someone else. And that's so hard for people. We see it as, her bringing herself forward, her, really wanting to make the best match for her, just like you're wanting to make the best match for you. I'll leave a moment if anyone has any questions. Checking Instagram to see if anyone else has any questions. Okay, the question I was just sent was, how do we get matched more quickly? $1 million question. I will say, if you're open to us sharing you on social media, 30% of our matches are made there. A surrogate sees intended parent that we share and goes, wow, I'd love to help them. So they're not coming in through our general program. They're coming in with intended parents selected. I would say that's a great way to, speed to match. I would say the second item or second way to match quickly is to really know what it is you're looking for in a surrogate so that you're not hesitating. Because often if you hesitate, the surrogate may have run ahead and picked someone, and she may have picked you, but it's taken a couple of days for you to respond. The average surrogate takes 40 hours to make her choice. And the reason it's so quick is that from the time a surrogate contacts us initially to the time she signs up, often is up to 6 months. And so when we finally have everything we need to have her profile ready for you to review, she's ready. And I want to just pin how to match quickly with information for you around the surrogates that we take in. Surrogates that come into our program fill out a profile form. They have an interview with one of our team members. They and their partner sign documents to state that they understand what it is they're undertaking. We have a criminal record check, an initial short form psychosocial assessment, all of which is completed prior to her profile being sent to you. We also have her social profile reviewed by a health professional, a fertility doctor that we work with, to ensure that any medications she's on are safe, or that there is an alternative to that medication that is safe. We also want to make sure that she's in good health, that the fertility clinic doesn't have any further questions, and sometimes they do. And so that would look like, let's look at her birth records. Let's look at, let's get a letter from an obstetrician who is willing to care for her in her next pregnancy. We want to make sure she's got that in place before she moves forward. All of these are what I call success measures. So they are measures or things that are going to come into play. And so we want to have those handled ahead of time. And so we work with fantastic clinicians that, level set our expectations and excitement of surrogates often. And so we will then get those profiles to you when they are ready. If you have any questions, please post them. In terms of fast matching, as I said, social media, as I said, really being clear about your family brand so you can respond quickly to profiles that you see. And then I think the third fast match would be to really open your mind's eye as to who this person will be. Some sort of key pieces that we often see as deal breakers. Intended parents say, I don't want a surrogate who uses cannabis. And in Canada, cannabis is legal. It's regulated by the liquor distribution branch of the Canadian government. It's taxed. It's safe for consumption, although not during pregnancy. And with that being said, we see 30% of women, 30% of moms, in surveys across Canada say that they utilize cannabis as a social, um, glass of wine or something similar to a glass of wine. And so we do see that a fair bit. So please know that um, that you may see that on a profile and be triggered by that, but please know that in Canada it's a very socially acceptable, legal. Um, yeah, we sort of equate it to having a glass of wine. Medications that may be listed on a profile, please know that the surrogate understands already that she will need to switch to something pregnancy safe if she is not on something pregnancy safe, or she would need to discontinue this medication. And she has done that in a previous pregnancy. So if we're sending you a profile, it's a surrogate who can move forward at the fertility clinic you're working with. So asking us, is she willing to go off this medication, or is she willing to not use cannabis during the pregnancy, will only slow down your process, because we are then going back to confirm information we already have, and we may be missing an opportunity to put together an amazing match with an amazing surrogate. Other than that, I think those are really the keys, in terms of, fast matching. As you are waiting to be matched, check in with your case specialist often. If you aren't receiving profiles, check in. We may have an issue with your email address. Our emails may be going into your spam folder. We may not be, your emails may be going into our spam folder, and our emails may be going into your spam filter. Check in and check in often. If it has been 90 days and you have not matched for the first time, or if you're coming back for a sibling journey, or if you are, you had a match break and you're coming back, every 90 days, you want to update, change your profile, because it's not hitting. And we want to make sure it really hits. And so whether that's redoing a video, and while you're at it, while you're doing a video, do 2 or 3 so that we just have lots to work with. Whether it's your Canva lookbook, looking at that and going, does this really portray us? And if it does, is there another way that we could be portrayed that may be more interesting to a surrogate? We have seen some certain sensitivities in the last year around intended parents in the US and intended parents in Israel. And so we are often saying to intended parents in Israel or in the US, just to leave off your location. It really doesn't matter so much where you're located. And bringing it up in the first sentence, may cause people to pause. And I want to be very clear, it isn't an anti-Semitic thing. It's when we go back to surrogates and say, hey, why did you stop watching their video on minute 1, right as they were saying where they were from? Surrogates will come back to us and say, just doesn't feel safe for us to carry a baby for someone who lives in the US, where I don't feel like it's safe to be a woman. And what if they have a daughter? Or, heading back to Israel, which is an area of the world that, has been impacted and impacted other places nearby. And so there's just a difficulty there around safety. And so we'll guide you through that process. We'll make sure you are always in the best and most positive light, because for many of our clients, they're coming from different parts of the world, and maybe the culture is different. And even something as simple as intended parents often will start their video with, we're John and Jenny. I'm a dentist. I'm a doctor. After 10 years in university, we realized we want to be, and a great career, we decided we wanted to be parents. And this video is filmed in our beautiful new home that we just purchased in order to be, to have room for our kids. While that sounds lovely to you as intended parents who are wanting to showcase your stability, your employment, the fact that you're homeowners, when we talk to surrogates who are not homeowners, who are stay-at-home single moms, or who are sort of getting their launch in terms of university or whatnot later in life, a lot of surrogates have said to us, well, if that's what makes a stable parent, what am I? Because I'm a parent and I don't have any of those things. And so not leading with your employment, not leading with home ownership, leading with your heart of, who you are. Many people have used their wedding videos and they've talked over the wedding video. They've used Instagram trends and trending audios to create just a really sweet look into their life. And I would really encourage you to start doing that. Look at our Instagram, which is cfc.families, to look at what we share for intended parents, because we really are doing our research and finding out what may be the best way to showcase your story. Oh, thank you, Arno. Please reach out with any other questions that you have. And Aaliyah is going to drop the brand building document in the chat here for you to look at, for you to get familiar with if you're not at the brand building stage yet. It really is a great opportunity for you to begin to tell your story. How many times have you been on Instagram or on Facebook and you're scrolling through videos and something just feels like home or resonates, you feel a very closeness to it? That is what surrogates say they feel when they see the intended parents are going to help. So as you're waiting, refining, retelling your story until we find the right person to share the next chapter of your story. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. Please reach back to your journey guide if you have any questions about this process. And if you joined late, we are sending out the recording, so you will have the entire webinar to review.